Regular meeting number 47 will now come to order. If everyone could please stand for a moment of silence and reflection for all those who lost their life last night in Las Vegas, their family members, their friends, the over 400 who were injured and taken to hospitals around the Las Vegas area. If we could have a moment of reflection upon them and then a moment of reflection for ourselves and our country as we deal with yet another mass shooting where there are a high number of casualties, to stand here and reflect upon ourselves and ask, where are we headed as a country and what can we do about it? So please stand. Thank you. Please play the national anthem. Councilmember Page, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome back my good friend, Reverend Jeffrey Key, the leader of New Faith Baptist Church.
Good evening. Let us pray. Sovereign God, we give you thanksgiving for President Zach Klein and City Council. We also give you thanksgiving for our community and the Columbus Enterprise. We pray that the common thread of love for the human condition that transcends gender, race, and religion will guide our hearts and our minds. With the barrage of things that are happening in our world today, we pray for the fair distribution of bounty that will go to all of our community and to all of God's people. For those who have no voice, allow us to be guided by the moral compass of justice and equality. We give you thanksgiving for our family suffering in Las Vegas and for the colossal loss. We pray against violence, we pray against hate, and we pray for unity this night, that even right now your good and perfect will for Columbus OH-10 Ohio will be served this night. For it is in the sovereign name of God Almighty. Let everyone say amen. Amen. And amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Keith.
Thank you.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, Clerk. This is just a reminder of the rules of council and the rules of the Columbus City Code that any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. And any person who enters those areas of Columbus City Council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21. Can I get a motion with the dispense of the reading of the journal? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
This week's communications received by the City Clerk's Office, they're listed on the agenda. They'll be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
How about resolutions from members of council? Councilmember Elizabeth Brown.
Yes, thank you, President Klein. As I introduce this resolution, could Thomas McClure and any other representatives with him from Fashion Week Columbus please come to the podium? We have tonight Resolution 0257X-2017 to recognize October 7th, 2017 through October 14th, 2017 as Columbus Fashion Week. Many people may not realize it, but Columbus is home to the third most fashion designers in the country, behind only New York City and Los Angeles. This is a true point of pride for our city, and Columbus Fashion Week is one of the premier events that helps showcase the flourishing fashion industry in our city. I gave myself a tongue twister there. Not only that, but it's an important local economic and cultural boost for Columbus every year. This year, Fashion Week will feature 12 local designers, international designer Alex Vinash, more than 130 local models, and a variety of local vendors and boutiques. It begins this Saturday. Mr. McClure, thank you for being here this evening. I'd like to thank you and other board members I believe you have with you for all your hard work on behalf of as I said, economic and cultural impact of Fashion Week. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, I move for adoption.
Brown, Harden, Page, Tenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, the podium is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council, for recognizing Fashion Week Columbus. My board and I are extremely passionate and proud of this nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide a platform to showcase local fashion designers and also to provide scholarships to fashion design students. We are constantly developing new programs and initiatives to further our mission. This is made possible by our sponsors and partners, including Easton, Sprite, and One Create, Doom and Orange, and Nurture the Salon. Columbus is an open and smart city. We have a thriving music and art scene. In regards to the arts, Columbus is known around the nation for the art of fashion design. We're ranked 3 in the nation for fashion designers, only behind 2 major cities, New York and LA. We should be proud. Fashion is part of Columbus's DNA. The city of Columbus has a very unique opportunity to become focused on our fashion industry and our fashion community, ensuring that the rest of the nation understands why Columbus is 3rd in the nation for fashion designers. This would further contribute to Columbus's identity as a fashion capital. I'll leave you with these words, and I'll turn the mic over to Nia Noel, our board member and style director. Fashion is a form of expression by the artist and by the wearer. Fashion does not hang on a wall waiting for an observer's critique. Fashion moves around in our everyday lives, through the parks we walk, through the halls of our workplaces, through our school campuses, through the restaurants we patron. Fashion does not sit still. Fashion cannot be still. It moves, it evolves, it's constant. Fashion brings people together regardless of race, religion, nationality, gender, or love preference. Look around, fashion is everywhere. Fashion is art, and Columbus is fashion.
I just wanted to speak to the designers and the models that we have featuring this year. We have over 135 models from all over the place. We even have some coming from out of state. Our designers, all of them live here, but a lot of them are transplants and have made Columbus their home. And we have a wide variety of race, creed, and everything like that. Some of the designers at the finale this year are Gerardo Encinas, Joan Madison, Juan Sefarios, Jonathan Mark Stein, Esther Sands, Olivia Dorado, Zuri Greer, Sika Inmi, and we have more in other shows. Those are the ones from our finale shows. We're very proud of our designers this year, and we really thank you for having us here, and it's an honor.
Thank you so much. That's all from us. So a shameless plug. FashionWeekColumbus.org. We are a nonprofit organization, so we have that .org. Please visit the website for more information on the events. It's October 7th through the 14th. It's coming up, starts this weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to have Assistant Chief Whiting and Lieutenant Dave Sawyer come to the microphone and approach the podium. I have Resolution 249X2017 to dedicate and declare the week of October 8th through the 14th to be Fire Prevention Week in Columbus, Ohio. Whereas the theme of this year's Fire Prevention Week is Every Second Counts, Plan 2 Ways Out, and whereas newer homes are built with lightweight materials that burn faster than older home construction, and whereas many of today's products and furnishings produce toxic gases and smoke when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within moments, and whereas these conditions contribute to a much smaller window of time for people to escape a home fire safely, with people having as little as 1 to 2 minutes to escape from the time the smoke alarm sounds, and whereas a home fire escape plan provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation. Whereas a home fire escape plan includes 2 exits from every room in the home, a path to the outside from each exit, smoke alarms are all required in locations, and a meeting place outside where everyone in the home will meet upon exiting. Whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all members of the household, and whereas practicing a home fire escape plan twice a year ensures that everyone in the household knows what to do in a real fire situation. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Columbus that this council does hereby proclaim October 8th through the 14th, 2017 as Fire Prevention Week. And with that, Assistant Chief Whiting, comments, please.
Yes. First of all, Fire Prevention Week really started. It's to commemorate the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, where over 100,000 people were left homeless, almost 18,000 structures destroyed, 250 people that were killed in that fire, and over 2,000 acres of burn over 37 hours. So Fire Prevention Week is just 1 week of the year where we really we push our message out all the time, but we get an opportunity to highlight it, and thank you for your support in this. The theme, obviously, you said, is Every Second Counts, Plan 2 Ways Out. And you can go ahead, David. Next slide. There's the chances, there's some statistics, but things you need to know. Really what we want people to know is we want parents to work with their children, draw a map on being able to get out of the house. One of the biggest things we stress is close your children's bedroom doors at night. That's going to protect them in the event that you have a fire. Smoke alarms on every level of your house, outside bedrooms, even in bedrooms. NFPA now recommends smoke alarms in bedrooms and throughout the house. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we provide free smoke alarms in the city of Columbus. And we'll show that hotline number, and I'm sure you'll leave it up. So our fire safety preparedness plan, we talked about smoke alarms. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Dave. There's our smoke alarm hotline, 614-724-0935. We are out almost every day installing smoke alarms. Last year, we installed probably close to 11,000 smoke alarms in the city of Columbus. And the firefighter hours were enormous. We were out many weekends. We had our biggest drive was in December, which we called the 12 Days of Safety, where we were able to go out and install almost 9,000 alarms in 12 days. And it's really been a concentrated effort. It's not nearly where we want to be, but it's important that we get these in people's houses. People recognize that if they don't work, and they call us. And you have our smoke alarm hotline number. This week, or starting next week, we have a lot of programs going on in the schools. We have a lot anyway, but Fire Prevention Week, we really get a lot of requests, and we get them all. We probably have about 40 things going on right now where we're in the schools, And then it's our Fire Prevention Week will end on the 14th, where we have a open house in all the fire stations around the city of Columbus. And that's from like 1 to 4 for that time. But the key is there's our smoke alarm hotline. Every second counts. Plan 2 ways out. Work with your children. It's very important, and same way for adults. And if you have any questions, there's our outreach number. Call us. If you call our smoke alarm hotline number, we'll come out, we'll help you.
Lieutenant?
President Klein, Safety Chair, Councilmember Brown, members of council, thank you for this resolution. I think what the chief said is very, very important to bring awareness to the community about Fire Prevention Week. We've had some very significant events with fires in this community, just recently in the Linden area, and I'm sure you guys remember that. We're trying to be very, very proactive in what we're doing. We're trying to save lives. One of the things I definitely would like for you to know, I like what the chief said about sleep with your bedroom doors closed at night. Everybody's supposed to sleep with their bedroom doors closed at night. But I think you need to also have a plan, prepare your plan, and practice it. You need to do a fire drill in your home. If you're doing it in school, how come you're not doing it in your home with your family? So please think about that. I think those messages will definitely save a life. Thank you.
Any comments from my colleagues? One last point. Again, I know in my home, we like to burn candles. You want to comment about candles? It'll help me with my wife, trust me.
That's, I know your wife, and you're on your own.
Yeah, I know where you live.
But the point is that people all too often burn candles and then they leave their home and forget that they've got a candle ablaze. It's important to keep in mind that you extinguish them before you leave your home, but you have to be aware of it. What's significant for all of us is that we don't want anybody to be caught in a situation involving a fire. Fire Prevention Week is simply, again, a method of trying to remind people, take the time to plan. It is very, very important, and once you do that, you'll be amazed. You can make it fun, especially if you have young children, to make it fun for them to appreciate the fact of how to get out of the house and why the doors are closed. So with that, if there's no other comments, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson. President Klein.
Thank you. That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, President Klein. This evening I have ordinance 0253X-2017 to celebrate the bicentennial of the birth of Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i faith. And so I'd invite Mr. Steve Connor, chairman of the local spiritual assembly of Central Ohio, and members of the assembly to come as I speak on this resolution. In the 19th century, Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, brought a message of universal peace founded on dignity and unity. The Baha'i community of Columbus has been an integral part of Central Ohio, embracing folk members from all races, nationalities, and cultural backgrounds since the 1920s here in our city. This council does hereby recognize Sunday, October 22nd, 2017, as a bicentennial anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'llah. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Connor to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilman Harden. Thank you, President Klein, members of council, for inviting us this evening. And thank you for extending this invitation on behalf of the more than 400 Baha'is in Central Ohio and 7 million Baha'is worldwide. We are joined all together for the celebration of the 200th anniversary of the birth of the founder of our faith, Baha'u'llah. The members of the Baha'i faith first settled in Columbus in 1916. We've had a spiritual assembly here since 1929. As Councilman Harden indicated, this October 20 through 22nd, we're having an open house at the Baha'i Center at 1993 Sunbury Road. The public is invited to come and learn about the Baha'i faith and to celebrate this very momentous occasion with the Baha'is worldwide. It'll be an open house which will have various presentations as well as food. We will introduce the resolution. We very much appreciate that. So for more information, if you would like to get that, you can get that at columbusbaha'i.org, where all the information on our open house and the Baha'i faith can be obtained. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. We often say that in Columbus, our diversity is our strength, and this assembly, the Baha'i faith, is certainly a representation of that, so we are certainly appreciative. Are there any comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you very much, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. I do have one resolution this evening, and I would like to call Mr. Darius Blackford, the Race Director for Nationwide Children's Hospital, Columbus Marathon and Half Marathon, down to the podium. And I have a resolution 0256X-2017, which is to recognize Nationwide Children's Hospital Columbus Marathon for celebrating racing in the community, your exceptional fundraising and groundbreaking research. I first like to move for adoption.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And Mr. Blackford, the floor is now yours to talk to us more about the marathon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Klein, Councilmember Page, President Klein, and members of council. I'm extremely pleased to be standing here today once again. We have reached the 250,000th person who's finished the Columbus Marathon in our 38th year history, which is just outstanding. And I'm also so proud of the fact that since 2012, we've raised more than $6 million for the hospital. We're on track for another $1 million year, and it's just been such a wonderful partnership to assist such a great institution. And I was thinking, as I was coming here today, this event it's Columbus's longest parade, and it involves, I'd be hard-pressed to say, more departments of the city than other events because of the scope of this event. And that includes, there'll be 300 police officers and fire officials who are involved with the event. And we have 3,000 volunteers, and we go through all the great neighborhoods of the city. We involve the refuse department and the water department. We have more fire hydrants turned on for this event, and it's just such a great shining moment for the city, and we bring in tens of thousands of people from around the world who've taken part in this event in our 38 years. So thank you for the support each year. The city has always been a great partner with us to make this, make our life easy as we can in terms of putting on a pretty major event. So thank you for the support and the encouragement.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. And if you could tell us when the race happens and if people can still register.
So we actually have 3 events. We have the Jesse Owens Jog, which is the 3rd year for this event. It's really a showcase event for the entire country. Our running and walking industry has not done a great job of diversity. So we set out in 2012 to begin working to attract a more diverse population, in particular African American health and wellness. And the event it's taken off. It's been fantastic. That's a 2.62 mile fun run and walk. It starts at the King Arts Complex, between the King Arts Complex and the Urban League office, finishes downtown at our finish line, and then that follows Saturday afternoon, the 14th, with the Kids Run. We have the Highlights Kids Run. We get almost 1,000 kids out there, and it's organized chaos, and it's so much fun. And then the marathon and half marathon are on Sunday, October 15th. They kick off at 7:30. We will have 18,000 athletes. And as I said, 3,000 volunteers, more than 300 police officers. It's just an incredible way to show off our town.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from my colleagues? Well, thank you so much. And I wore my running shoes just for you.
Thank you, President Klein. I have a resolution, and it's Resolution 059X-2017. It's to recognize October as a National Farm to School Month in the City of Columbus and celebrate the Great Lakes Great Apple Crunch by encouraging Columbus residents and businesses to join Columbus City School students as they crunch into Ohio-grown apples at noon on October the 12th of 2017. Today, I have the honor of presenting the resolution at the Waterman Farms in Ohio, at Ohio State University, to Mr. Glenn Mills, but also to Carol Smathers, who's the Ohio State University Ohio Farm School Director. And it was wonderful being out with at all the apple trees, and these were apples, these great apples that are there that so for October the 12th, I want to make sure that, you know, apples are great for each and every one of us, that our kids and adults should eat at least 5 fruits and vegetables a day. And so with that, we also, through this food plan, we're able to buy a machine for the school system where little kids do not like to bite into apples. They like apples sliced, and then they will eat them. And so through the work of this food plan, we have a food slicer at Columbus City Schools, and we will be back in the city schools are buying Ohio-grown apples to feed to our children. So on October the 12th, we're asking all our viewing and listening residents to take a bite out of an apple and be up at 12 noon on October the 12th for Apple Crunch Day, okay? And so it was great today, and remember, that's my badge here that says Apple Crunch, but it's really important, you know, for our families to be able to have access to healthy, local, affordable food. And I will just tell you, for those, this is still apple picking season, it is the best to go and eat an apple right off the tree. It's nothing like buying it in the store. We want to support our retailers, but again, it makes a big difference. So with that, we gave the resolution earlier, and so I have a motion to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Tenziano, Tyson. President Klein.
Thank you. Now move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Tenziano, Tyson. President Klein.
Thank you. And now I just have a couple of quick announcements. The first is I want to recognize our city auditor, Mr. Hugh Dorian, and thank him for his leadership and congratulate him for his role in helping our city to remain one of the best managed cities in the United States. I actually have 2 announcements in regarding to Mr. Dorian's leadership. The first is I'm happy to report that Columbus, for the 38th consecutive year, received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for our comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending December the 31st of 2016. We received this award from the Government Finance Officers Association. The certificate was signed by Mr. Christopher Morrell, the Executive Director and CEO of the organization. I also want to note that since our last council meeting, the City of Columbus received a AAA bond rating from the top 3 credit rating agencies that evaluate municipal finance: Fitch Credit Ratings, Moody's Investors Service, and S&P Global Ratings. This is the highest rating available. Columbus is one of only a few large U.S. cities to receive this rating. More importantly, this allows us to borrow money at the lowest interest rates to finance our capital projects for our residents. This means that more roads can be repaired, more potholes can be fixed, and better services can be delivered to our residents. Mr. Dorian, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Chairwoman Tyson, and all council members. All of these awards and accolades come along because of and I'm very serious when I say this, the wonderful, wonderful city employees that I have around me, and that the finance department has so many of them. We work collaboratively on these things. Thank you all for that recognition, but it's really due to the people around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dorian. And we do appreciate your modesty, but I certainly have the opportunity to spend significant time with you and know that getting this AAA bond rating and certainly is a lot because of the leadership that you have within this community and also with those rating agencies. And just so thank you to you. And again, thank you to everyone else who's working with you, but appreciate your leadership. And my last announcement is the Columbus Italian Festival, the 37th Annual Columbus Italian Festival we held October 6th, the 7th, and the 8th at 720 Hamlet Street. It's exciting this year because Columbus Sister Cities, there will be, our relationship with them will be hosting a Pesto Festival. The Columbus Pesto Championship will take place Sunday, October 8th from 3 to 5 on the traditional stage at the Columbus Italian Festival. Dom Tiberi will be the MC for this event. And we are proud to have a member of Columbus City Council who is of Italian descent, Councilman Michael Stenziano, who has been a part of the committee to bring this together. And we'll be joined this Friday by Mr. Roberto Paninza and Mr. Muriel Carvalho, who are part of the delegation flying from Genoa, Italy. And this is an exciting event for our city, and I would encourage our residents to attend. And this is all because of our trip of going to Genoa in 2015, that this is a part of some of the success from that sister city relationship. And that's all I have on my committee this evening.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. I'm going to turn it back over to Auditor Dorian for any further comments. The Treasurer's Office, the City Attorney's Office, anyone from the Municipal Court here? I see none. Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent action portion of the agenda? May we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the city clerk? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson. President Klein.
I think Ms. Brown is trying to get that apple, President Pro Tem. Came over. Thank you, Clerk. We now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading.
Finance Committee, ordinances 2219 and 2305-2017. Administration Committee, ordinance 2447-2017. Public Safety Committee, ordinance 2460-2017. Public Service and Transportation Committee, resolution 224X-2017. Small and Minority Business Development Committee, ordinance 2571-2017. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinance 2377-2017. Technology Committee, ordinance 2286-2017. Public Utilities Committee, ordinance 2335-2017. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee, ordinance 2316-2017.
Thank you, Clerk. The following ordinances appear as consent. Will you please read those and the ordinance numbers into the record?
Resolutions of expression 247X, 246X, 255X-2017. Finance Committee, ordinances 2106, 2309, 2420, 2427, 2453, 2461, 2514, 2535, and 2537-2017. Health and Human Services Committee, ordinances 2014 and 2466. I think I said that wrong, 2418 and 2466-2017. Environment Committee, ordinances 2298, 2355-2017. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinances 2299, 2302, 2313, 2317, 2358, 2360, 2473, 2501-2017. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinances 1891, 2296, 2297, and 2605-2017. Housing Committee, ordinances 2324, 2325, 2326, 2327, 2328, 2329, 2330, 2331, 2332, 2333, 2413, 2414, 2415, 2425, 2440, 2441, 2442, 2443, and 2445-2017. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 1950, 2176, 2177, 2178, 2179, 2198, 2200, 2250, 2288, 2458-2017. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee, ordinance 2290-2017, and appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0 167, 168, 174, 175, 176, 177, and 178-2017.
Thank you, Clerk. We do have one consent action speaker. It's Mr. Nathaniel G. Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, if you could come forward. It appears that you're speaking in favor of 2326-2017. If you just could state your name, your address, any organizations you represent, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Nathaniel George Wilkins, the chairman of solely vacant property in North Linden area. I would just like to know what's going to be done with 1270 Aberdeen Avenue, and how long has been vacant for it? What will it be used for the property at this time? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Director Shoney, if you or your staff could coordinate with Mr. Wilkins on that information, we would appreciate it. Any other questions or comments on the consent action portion of the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion for approval? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown? Hardin? Page?
Yes, with the exception of 2298-2017 and 2355-2017, on which I am abstaining.
Stenziano? Tyson? President Klein?
Yes, consent action carries with the notable exceptions. We'll now proceed to the second reading of 30-day tabled and emergency legislation. The first committee is the Finance Committee. It's chaired by the President Pro Tem. President Pro Tem Tyson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. I have ordinance 2279-2017 to amend the 2017 capital improvement budget to authorize the city auditor to transfer various funds within the construction management capital improvement fund, to authorize the director of finance and management to renew and to modify an existing contract with KNS Services, Inc., to authorize expenditure of $151,000 from the construction management capital improvement fund, to authorize the expenditure of $50,000 from the general fund, and to waive competitive bidding requirements of Columbus City Code Chapter 329 and to declare an emergency. Director Lombardi, would you want to please share information regarding why we are waiving competitive bidding on this particular ordinance?
Sure. Thank you, President Klein, President Pro Tem Tyson, other members of council. Ordinance 0196-2014 authorized the Director of Recreation and Parks and the Director of Finance and Management to enter into a 5-year agreement with KNS Services for equipment, software, and technical support of security system. These include our cameras, which are in City Hall, some of our recreation facilities, and other facilities, including the new building that is being built, the Michael B. Coleman Government Center. This is the 4th of that 5th year. We are extending it as part of the contract, and it is a sole source so that we can continue to have the same equipment and the same technology and support service.
Any questions? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 2448-2017. It's to amend ordinance number 1644-2017 to authorize the award of items 1 through 64 to Centus Corporation, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Chapter 329 of Columbus City Code, and to declare an emergency. Again, Director Lombardi, would you please share why we are waiving competitive bidding on this ordinance?
Thank you, President Klein, President Pro Tem Tyson, other members of council. Ordinance 1644-2017 authorized the award of items 1 through 64 to the low bidder Galls LLC. These are for uniforms. Once we started looking at and saw the different configurations of what different departments needed for their uniforms, it was determined that there could be a possibility that Cintas would have been low on some configurations. So since it was difficult for us to figure out all the different configurations that departments have,
we decided to go ahead and award all items to both companies, and this would allow our departments to get the best price for the configuration needs that they have. So we have to waive competitive bidding because the code does not allow at this time for multiple awards for the same item.
Thank you, Director Lombardi. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I move for passage and ask for a voice vote.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown? Hardin? Page? Stenziano? Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein?
Thank you. I would now like to move to Health and Human Services. Thank you. The first ordinance is 2361-2017. It's to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Health in the amount of $258,000 for the Ohio Infant Mortality Reduction Initiative Grant Program, to authorize the appropriation of $258,000 from the unappropriated balance of the Health Department's grant fund, and to declare an emergency. The Ohio Infant Mortality and Reduction Initiative Program is a culturally specific home visitation program that provides in-home family-centered service coordination and education services to high-risk, low-income African-American pregnant women and their infants to age 1 who reside in 14 specific zip codes. The zip codes are 43203, 04, 05, 06, 07, 11, 15, 19, 22, 23, 24, 27, 29, and 32. The zip codes are within the Celebrate One target hotspots. And this year, we hope to serve 129 women and their infants, and again, with the ultimate goal of babies being born a healthy birth weight, as well as living past their first birthday. No questions or comments. I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein?
Thank you. The next ordinance is 2432-2017 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept additional grant funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the amount of $218,922 for the Ryan White HIV Care Part A grant program, and to authorize the appropriation of $218,922. This program will allow over 2,448 individuals, unduplicated individuals, to be able to receive services. Some of the services are the outpatient ambulatory medical care, their mental health services, medical case management services, non-medical case management service, early intervention services, etc. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein?
Thank you. The next ordinance is 2462-2017 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Health for the Women, Infants, and Children, which is the WIC program, in the amount of $6,520,087 to authorize the appropriation of $6,520,087 from the unappropriated balance of the Health Department's grants fund, and to declare an emergency. Franklin County WIC is the largest program in Ohio and currently serves 34,450 clients. There are 15 locations throughout Franklin County. There are 9 Columbus Public Health WIC clinics and 6 Nationwide Children's Hospital WIC clinics that operate Monday through Friday. If you want to learn more about this program, dial 614-645-6755. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein?
Thank you. And the final ordinance in my committee this evening is Ordinance 2569-2017. It's to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a grant agreement with Children's Hunger Alliance to expand nutritional and physical activity programming, and to authorize an appropriation and expenditure within the Neighborhood Initiatives Subfund, and to declare an emergency. And I am going to ask my colleague, Councilmember Jaiza Page, to speak on this ordinance and Councilman Page, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. And we are co-sponsoring this legislation with President Pro Tem Tyson, myself, Councilmember Harden, and Councilmember Stenziano. And the Children's Hunger Alliance, as we know, is a statewide organization that is dedicated to ending childhood hunger by providing healthy meals and snacks to at-risk children. And we certainly appreciate all the work that the Children's Hunger Alliance does throughout our city. And Mr. Scott Neely, the Director of Government Affairs, is with us this evening. And I'd like to ask him to come down to the podium and talk more about how this ordinance will expand the current nutritional and physical programs that you have. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember Page, and thank you, President Klein, members of council. My name is Scott Neely. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Children's Hunger Alliance. Appreciate this opportunity just to tell you a little bit more about our organization and the ordinance before you this afternoon or this evening. We are a statewide organization, as Councilmember Page mentioned. We ensure that children without access receive healthy food, nutrition, education, and physical activity. Currently, there's 1 in 5 children that are food insecure in the state of Ohio and in Franklin County. Children's Hunger Alliance tries to alleviate that problem in different ways. We sponsor federal meal programs in early child care settings and after-school programs. We work with schools and organizations across Ohio to increase access and participation in the federal school breakfast program and summer nutrition programs. And we educate children to make healthy food choices and become more engaged in physical activity to promote lifelong health. So each day the agency reaches more than 24,000 children throughout the state, including over 4,500 in Franklin County. This ordinance will help in 2 ways. The $50,000 will support delivery of the Catch Kids Club program at after-school sites and also the Eat, Play, Grow early childhood program to child care centers in the greater Columbus area. These programs are essential because they target a predominantly low-income population that is particularly at risk of poor health outcomes. Through the Catch Kids Club program, Children's Hunger Alliance will provide evidence-based nutrition education and physical activity programming at after-school sites in Columbus, where the agency also provides healthy meals to hungry children. And the Eat, Play, Grow program will provide free nutrition education and physical activity programming to child care centers where the majority of attendees come from low-income households. Eat, Play, Grow aims to improve the health and wellness of young children in Franklin County and equip children and child care providers with the knowledge and resources to incorporate nutrition and wellness programming into their daily activities with children. So that being said, we're very excited to have this partnership with Columbus City Council. Thank you to all the sponsors of this ordinance. We really appreciate your support, and we'd love to have you come and tour any of our programs, especially the ones that we mentioned tonight that are part of the ordinance. And if there's any information you ever need, please contact me, but thank you so much for your support for children in Columbus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Neely. Are there any additional questions or comments? Thank you so much for coming down. That's all I have, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you, Councilmember Page. And again, just appreciate your leadership and supporting the Children's Hunger Alliance in regards to the Local Food Action Plan. It is certainly hitting some of our goals in our Section B, which is the education of children around healthy, affordable local food and providing them also with healthy food choices. So thank you again for your leadership and for all the council members who are supporting this ordinance. And I now move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. That's all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. The next committee is Economic Development. Councilmember Stenziano will be reading the first piece of legislation in that agenda.
Thank you, President Klein. The first piece of legislation, Economic Development, tonight is Ordinance 2349-2017 to authorize the Director of Development to enter into a Community Reinvestment Area Agreement with Rickenbacker West Owner, LLC, and the Columbus-Franklin County Finance Authority for a property tax abatement of 100% for a period of 15 consecutive years on real property improvements in consideration of a proposed total investment of approximately $34,492,407 in new building construction and the creation of 80 net new full-time permanent positions. So this ordinance is notable, as mentioned, because it's going to grant a tax exemption in real property up to 100% for 15 years for the new construction of an 802,149 square foot industrial warehouse. As we're aware, the city typically doesn't grant 15-year, 100% property tax exemptions for commercial development. The usual offer, as Director Shoney has shared repeatedly, is 10 years at 75%. But the Department of Development is requesting our action and approval because it referred the Pizzuti companies to directly negotiate with Columbus City Schools for the school district's consent and appropriate package through that negotiation. Based on that, the developers and Columbus City Schools have agreed to the following compensation agreement. The developers will pay Columbus City Schools $1.1 million in 3 unequal payments, provide 5 reading kiosks and maintenance of those kiosks for 5 years, provide equipment for Columbus City Schools' career and technical education program valued at $160,000, provide 10 paid construction trade internships for Columbus City School students for 10 years. In addition, developers plan to invest a total of approximately $34.4 million in order to construct the building, and has estimated that the new warehouse will support the creation of 80 net new full-time permanent positions within the city of Columbus, with an associated new annual payroll of approximately $2,400,000 by the end of the 3rd full year of operations. As mentioned, the Columbus City School District negotiated and approved unanimously this project, and I know Eric Roush, representing the Columbus School Board, is here tonight to answer any questions. One other piece of this that I was surprised as I learned more about it was that this will be the first warehouse of such scale built in the city of Columbus since the Great Recession. And so I will leave it, Director Shoney and Mr. Roush are here for any questions from my colleagues. Seeing none, we do have one speaker, Mr. Motil, speaking in opposition to the ordinance.
President Klein, members of City Council, Joe Motil, live at 167 West Cook Road, Columbus, Ohio. Ron Pizzuti is probably one of the top 5 recipients of taxpayer handouts in Columbus. For instance, in the early 90s, he received a free parcel of land from Columbus where his gated Marinova high-rise for the rich sits near the Arena District. At that time, the property was valued at $500,000, and the city of Columbus claimed it was basically worthless. And if I'm not mistaken, he also received a 30-year TIF on the Marinova project. In 2001, he got a 10-year, 75% tax abatement on a $6.2 million project. Then there is, of course, the $1 purchase of a public parking lot in the short north, on top of a 75% tax abatement on the hotel office building project he built on that property. So now the Columbus School Board and City Council believes Mr. Pizzuti deserves to have an $18 million of his $34 million investment returned to him. So this half-off sale for speculative warehouses could possibly create 80 warehouse jobs for a company that we don't even know for sure will provide full-time employment at an hourly rate for many of those 80 jobs at just over $12 an hour. And many warehouse workers in the so-called logistics industry are paying up to 50 to 70% of their income towards rent. It is well known that many of these Rickenbacker warehouse operators send their employees home without 8 hours of work, or even 4 hours sometimes, when work volume is slow. These are the types of jobs that barely keep people hanging on. So you mean to tell me that you feel this 50% off sale for low-paying, most likely part-time jobs that will require long, inconvenient bus rides for those who do not even have their own vehicles is deserving of an $18 million handout on the backs of the property taxpayers of this city? Once again, you are continuing to sacrifice property tax revenues by granting tax abatements to your multi-million-dollar wealthy campaign contributors in order to increase the city's general fund, all the while reducing revenues that pay for our children's education, teachers' salaries, those with developmental disabilities, libraries, services for the aging, and critical dollars to help address this community's opioid crisis. And I guess the public should also believe that a combined $11,500 in campaign contributions to Council members Klein, Tyson, and Hardin, and $20,000 to Mayor Ginther from Mr. Pizzuti's PAC will have absolutely zero influence on your decision on this matter. And by the way, if this tax abatement is approved tonight, this council will have given away $164 million in property taxes in the last 23 months. Few questions. What metrics were used to justify the size and amount of this tax abatement? Were they essential to the financial viability of the project? And what area of distress is the project mitigating to qualify for this tax abatement? Thank you.
Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments for Mr. Motil, for Director Shoney, for Mr. Roush?
I think that was an offer for me to speak.
I think President Pro Tem Tyson would love to hear from you tonight.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, for the opportunity. Councilmember Stinziano, President Klein, members of council. A couple of things to point out. Mr. Motil was, I think, equating the value of the property tax reduction, which is essentially an ongoing cost, to the cost of the building. Those are two completely separate things. The cost of the building to construct is an upfront capital cost. Property taxes, as I think we all know, are an ongoing operating cost associated with a building. And one of the strategies that we use in the city, and all cities use to attract businesses, to reduce the ongoing operating cost. That is what a property tax reduction is. It's not an upfront cash payment to a developer. Also, it does nothing to reduce the amount of income that the schools currently receive. It is a reduction in the future expense of operating a property. So to imply that the schools are reducing their current revenue is just simply factually wrong. In terms of the metrics that we use to evaluate these properties or these kinds of projects, one of the ones that we used in this case was, frankly, the investment into the schools. And as Councilmember Stinziano said at the outset, when Pizzuti came in and asked for an enhanced abatement in this case, we suggested that they go talk to the schools, see if they could work out something with the schools. They had a very long, very fruitful discussion with the school district. If you have questions about that, Eric or Stan Behort can come up and answer those questions. But both parties came back to us in June, July, and said, we think we've got something pretty close. We studied it. We made a couple of suggestions, shared some feedback. And those two parties primarily agreed. I think when you look at the agreement that the Pizzutis have put in place, I think it reflects their commitment to the community. It's something that we look at as the potential when we look at other kinds of abatements like this in the future. It's not the model because it's kind of a special case because Pizzuti has been such a fixture in the community. They're able to do things that somebody coming from the outside can't, but we think it's important to look at. So we did look at the metrics about how much investment was there. We looked at the what the real estate development within the city of Columbus had been in that market, and it has been soft. That site has been on the market for at least 10 years with no activity. So those are how we decided to recommend going forward with this project.
Thank you, Director Shoney. Councilmember Brown.
Director, you went outside. You said normally you do 15 years as opposed to 10. Why don't you elaborate on why you chose to do that?
I'm sorry. Normally we do 10 years instead of 15.
Yes.
If you look at what our competitive suburban neighbors are offering, all of our suburban neighbors in that part of the city are offering 15-year 100% abatement. In the logistics industry, it is a very low margin business. Decisions on location are made on pennies per square foot. And that's why we have not been as competitive for projects of this scale in that part of the city.
Any additional questions from my colleagues? Okay. Seeing none, I first would request to move the ordinance to emergency by voice vote.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown? Yes. Hardin? Yes. Page? Yes. Stinziano? Yes. Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein?
And next, I'd move for passage by voice vote.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown? Yes. Hardin? Yes. Page? Stinziano? Yes. Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein?
That is the only ordinance I'm reading. I'll return it back to the chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. Next, in economic development, we have ordinance 2449-2017 to authorize an amendment to the 2017 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of cash between projects within the same fund, to authorize and direct the Director of the Department of Development to purchase certain property owned by the Ohio Department of Transportation, and to quitclaim the real property to White Castle Management Company, reserving easement rights for any existing utilities, to waive land review commission requirements of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of up to $26,000 from the Development Taxable Bond Fund, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance is a part of the economic development agreement that the City of Columbus entered into for the mixed-use redevelopment of the White Castle headquarters located at 555 West Goodale Street. The purchase and transfer of the currently unused right-of-way is necessary for the completion of the project. Are there any questions from my colleagues, for myself, or the director? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Next, we have ordinance 2507-2017 to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to issue a purchase order to King Business Interiors for the purchase of furniture and fixtures needed for the Department of Building and Zoning Services for its new offices located at 111 North Front Street, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $100,000 from the Development Services Fund, and to declare an emergency. Director Messer, can you speak to the waiving of competitive bidding and emergency consideration?
Sure. Chair Brown, President Klein, other members of council. This legislation allows for the purchase of additional furniture items needed for our new building, which we'll be moving into in January. Most of the furniture has already been purchased, but time is of the essence for some parts and pieces that we need to complete the furniture for our new building. We've had some changes in staffing and some moves that have necessitated the purchase of some additional furniture. In order to get that purchase done and available by the time we move in, it was determined that since the items, the pieces and parts that we need are available on the state term contract, the prices have already been negotiated. So while we are not competitively bidding, this allows us to get the negotiated price from the state as well as meet our timelines. And otherwise, we would not have the furniture available for several employees when the time comes to move in January.
Okay, thank you, Director Messer. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
President Klein, that's all I have in economic development. May I move to environment? Before I read our ordinance and environment, I would like to invite Tim Swager up to give a update on our recycling contract negotiations with Rumpke. I believe it's, or our director, are you doing it? Okay, I'm sorry. Tim, keep your seat. Director Gallagher, if you could provide a short update on the ongoing hard work of your department to work with Rumpke on our new contract.
Yes. Chair Brown, President Klein, other members of council. The city signed a 5-year, $45 million contract with Rumpke back in March, and when we came to you with that contract, we agreed that we would continue working with Rumpke and come back to council at your request to see if we could find any efficiencies. Since then, we've been negotiating with Rumpke, and basically what we have found from talking with many other cities, our refuse administrator, Tim Swager, who's with us today, has gone to a conference and talked again to many other cities. What we found is we actually have a pretty good deal with Rumpke. For example, Columbus pays Rumpke $1.70 per household to pick up recycling and yard waste every other week here in Columbus. For another city, as comparison, is Cincinnati pays Rumpke $2.20 just to pick up the recycling piece of that cost. So we went back to Rumpke and we asked them to come up with a list of the service requirements that changed from the original contract to this current contract. And what they came back with was changes that they were requesting to our responsible wage requirement, to our performance bond requirements, and to the financial penalties we had in there for failure of service. Those costs savings were only going to be about $160,000 to the city per year, and we just did not want to take the risk of taking those three things out of that contract for $160,000 per year. So then we continued to talk with them. What we found was that there really wasn't going to be any savings on the recycling side of the program without drastically reducing service to the citizens, and we did not want to do that at this time. So we went back and started looking at the yard waste piece of the proposal, which was, again, about half of the cost of the contract that we are currently in. Some of the things we looked at there was whether the city should do the yard waste in-house, whether we should completely eliminate the yard waste program, whether we reduce the yard waste program to seasonal, or we could also reduce it to a certain amount of bags to be picked up from each household per week. Some of those, obviously, we did not want to do. The reducing it to a certain amount of bags per week, just the difficulty in enforcing that, and then having people perhaps call because they thought their bags were missed when they really weren't. And then we really, once you started running the numbers, it really wasn't going to be much of a cost savings to the city. The other scenario proposed by Rumpke was to have the city pay Rumpke a fee per household, and then Rumpke would charge a subscription fee back to those citizens who opted into the service and refund that money back to the city. We again rejected that option because we didn't want the citizens to have to opt in and pay a fee, even though the city was already paying a fee for everyone in the city to be included. So I say all that to say where we ended up with is currently just staying with the contract that we have with Rumpke. However, we are working with SWACO, one of our partners here, on a grant request to study the recycling and ways to improve that and expand participation. We believe if we can expand participation, get more clean recyclables coming into the city, that will only help drive down our costs with Rumpke. We do continue every day to work on ways to become more efficient, not only with recycling and yard waste, but also on the trash and bulk side, and we will continue to try to do that with our taxpayers' dollars. If you have any questions for me, or again, Tim Swag, our refuse administrator, who tirelessly worked on all of this, is here to answer any questions or to give more specifics. Thank you.
Any questions?
Question. Director, the issue on recycling, currently we do it every other week. If the objective is to increase recycling, which will be every week, how would that inject itself into additional cost for Rumpke, or the study that you say is being conducted now by SWACO? Is there a timeline for when that study is going to be completed so that we can get a sense of what citizens in the city want? Because more people are asking me about recycling more than every other week.
Yep, so I will have Tim come up and talk a little bit about the details. We did have a piece of, when we bid the contract out, we did ask them to also give us a cost for doing it every week versus every other week. If you remember, this contract went up $2 million over what it has been in the past. The cost to do it weekly was probably close to double, but I will have Tim come up and talk a little bit about that, and then what we are doing with this new study with SWACO.
Thank you. Tim?
Thank you. Yes, on that, we actually did bid out weekly recycling as part of the last contract after negotiations from, as you know, Rumpke was our only bidder. Weekly pickup was exactly double the contract cost, and obviously due to restrictions in our budget, that was not possible to go to weekly. So what we're now focusing on is working with SWACO on how do we increase capacity for our, we want to do the study with SWACO. It's a grant request at this point. We're working on the grant request. The idea would be to do the study next year and complete it next year and put in, some of those recommendations forward. But we're looking at, can we increase the amount of containers that we give? Do we increase the size? We're looking at a whole bunch of things, as well as more neighborhood drop-off spots, things of that nature, are all going to be studied within that grant request.
The part of the issue, Tim, is that I do more recycling than I do regular garbage now. When you look at the way in which it's being conducted and what we can do to get more and more recycled into the system, the better off we're going to be. But not at the expense of Rumpke charging us additional dollars to do that. I'm sure there's going to be additional costs, but we need to be prepared to figure out how we're going to address that issue.
Yeah, and that'll be part of the study. Obviously, right now, if we increase the amount that we're recycling, there's no additional cost to Rumpke. So for us to them because, quantities, they go to the house no matter how much we have to pay them. So we want to really increase we have areas that are very low in recycling within the city. We want to focus on bringing them up. We have medium subscribers. We want to focus on them, making them super recyclers, as we refer to them. And we have areas of town that already do super recycle. So we want to kind of study those areas. How do you increase the education part of it to get people like yourself all throughout the city to recycle more? Because the more we recycle, the more we save on the tipping fees on the back end, which really justifies some more of the cost that we put into the program.
Councilmember, I think what the department has shared with me is that in some areas, the equipment, we could flip the 300-gallon and the 90-gallon, and really people are recycling to fill their trash and throwing away garbage to fill their recycling. But that's not yet what our equipment looks like. So that's part of the reason for the study, is to figure out where we can actually achieve this ratio flip.
And you said there's an educational program, part of that, to market, to educate folks why there's value in recycling.
That is correct. SWACO is actually working on a regional plan for education on recycling with us as part of that they'll be rolling out next year to educate people on the values of recycling, and also working actually with the recyclers to identify secondary markets for the recyclable goods, because that's part of the process as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. And I know you said you're working with SWACO and working with the city to work on a marketing plan for the areas that we have either lower participation, or then obviously moving someone up from the current participation to the next level. And just hope that it would be, I don't know the zip codes that certainly maybe we don't have the participation that we need, but I'd hope that as we go through and determine where zip codes they happen to be, that we make sure that the marketing is certainly going to be based upon the individuals that are in that community. And so I think that will be key. And we're a diverse community, and we want to make sure that whatever we're going to do in terms of marketing in particular areas, that we're thinking about that.
Yes, that will certainly be taken into consideration, and we're now printing our recyclable materials in 3 different languages to try to help some of those, because we do think there's been a language barrier on some of our recyclable information going out. So we are trying to target that as well.
And also it being catchy. I mean, it has to be depending on who you're marketing to, it is different. And so I know you know this, but again, it cannot be like it covers everybody. There's some catchy themes that a person can remember and say, okay, I got it. So just hopefully we're looking at the diversity of our community. So
certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if you mentioned it, Director, but the $170 we're paying is both for recycling and yard waste. And you compared it to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati actually only does recycling. Is that correct?
Correct.
So appreciate that. Good deal. I'm curious, though, in the update, all I heard was a lot of Rumpke. What efforts have been made to discuss other potential savings or innovation with other entities? And to President Pro Tem Tyson's point, I actually really appreciate the work Mr. Swager's done on some of our communities and looking for pilot programs, innovation on the refuse side. Curious if we're going to be able to see any maybe pilots or innovation on the recycling side.
Yeah, on that, I thank you first for the compliments. And secondary is, on the recycling side, we have met with a couple other people showing interest in the market. We continue to meet. Just got a call again today from another vendor that would like to discuss possibilities and pilot programs. The challenge we have is the city our size, most of these companies don't have the resources already in place. So we would have to start chewing these up, giving them some small bites of this to look at, and that's what we're really looking at now. Are there opportunities out there to expand that recycling into smaller areas, and some of these smaller companies give them an opportunity?
So is there a potential timeline for that?
It's a struggle right now because some of the requirements for getting a contract in place for us requires them to have the materials and the ability on hand. So the equipment and everything has to be on hand. So that's what we're working with them. So while I may have a timeline, the company has to get in some of their stuff in line as well.
Anything else from my colleagues? You can sit. Okay, great. Thank you, Director Gallagher and Administrator Swager, and to your teams for the hard work. And we will continue to work hard and get updates. Thank you again. Next we have Ordinance 2315-2017 to authorize the Director of Public Service to modify and increase an existing contract with Recollect Systems to continue communicating information to residents concerning the refuse, recycling, yard waste, and street sweeping programs, to waive the competitive bidding requirements of City Code Chapter 329, to authorize the expenditure of up to $29,322 from the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund, and to declare an emergency. Recollect Systems provides the City of Columbus with an online platform that residents can use to find information on refuse recycling and yard waste collection, as well as street sweeping services. The contract modification extends the contract through the end of 2018, and the expenditure pays for that extension. Competitive bidding is being waived due to the additional costs that would result from another company duplicating the services already being provided. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I have one ordinance in administration, President Klein. Ordinance 2471-2017 to authorize the city auditor to appropriate $16,000 from within the unappropriated balance of the Employee Benefits Fund, to authorize the Human Resources Director to modify the existing contract with Optum Care Solutions Incorporated to continue to provide all employees and eligible adult dependents tobacco cessation services from February 1st, 2017 through January 31st, 2018, to authorize the additional expenditure of $16,000 from the Employee Benefits Fund or so much thereof as may be necessary to pay the costs of said contract and to declare an emergency. As stated, this ordinance authorizes and funds continuing tobacco cessation services. Continuing to provide these services to city employees is an important component of the Department of HR's Healthy Columbus program. The need for this additional authorization is due to the number of people participating in the program, which it's really great that it's being utilized. And thank you to the Department of Human Resources for your work in ensuring that's the case. I encourage all city employees who currently smoke and would like to quit, or even if you don't like to quit, to look into these services. Emergency action is requested to maintain continuity. Any questions or comments? I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
That's all I have, President Klein.
Thank you, Chairman. The next committee is Public Service and Transportation. It's chaired by Councilmember Hardin. Chair Hardin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. This evening in Public Service and Transportation Committee, we have Ordinance 2044-2017 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service and Finance Management to participate in contracts established by the Ohio Department of Transportation under Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code, and to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Codes for purchases made under the ODOT Competitive Purchase Program. This allows the Department of Public Service and the Department of Transportation to utilize contracts established by ODOT. By utilizing ODOT, these contracts produce cost savings for taxpayers in the city. Public service will still be required, however, to come back to council for any purchases over $20,000. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
President Klein, is it all right if I move to rules and reference? Thank you so much. This evening in Rules and Reference, I join with Councilmember Stenziano in bringing forth Ordinance 2350-2017 to amend the Columbus City Code, Section 2327-01, and to enact new Section 2327.20, establishing regulations for the tethering of animals in the city of Columbus. This conversation around tethering policy began with a simple meeting with constituents that both Councilmember Stenziano and I had. We quickly realized that instead of being in the front of the pack in protecting our beloved animals, we were really behind other cities, other municipalities in Ohio, in making sure that there were appropriate protections in harmful tethering. And with that, I'm going to turn the ordinance over to Councilmember Stenziano to talk more about the code that we work with Legislative Affairs in creating and bring up our guest. Councilmember Stenziano.
Thank you, Councilmember Hardin. So, as you mentioned, although Columbus and the state of Ohio currently have code provisions regarding animal cruelty and confinement, there existed no regulations regarding tethering dogs and other animals, a practice that can produce harmful effects for the animals themselves as well as neighborhood residents. So the proposed code change will help address the more dangerous methods of tethering that harm dogs and other animals, create neighborhood nuisance, and contribute to criminal activity. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Center for Disease Control, and several animal advocacy organizations have highlighted the negative effects of inhumane tethering. Improper types of collars can become embedded in the skin, and animals can struggle on tethers. In the specific case of dogs, improper and prolonged tethering can lead to increased nuisances, such as barking or other loud noises. They can also become more dangerous to residents, and according to the CDC, chained dogs are almost 3 times as likely to bite as dogs that are not tethered. Also, improper and inhumane tethering practices are often signs of additional animal cruelty and other criminal activities. So that began not only our discussion from the constituent, but also discussions with Columbus Humane, formerly known as the Capital Area Humane Society, in the city's attorney's office, talking about the animal cruelty cases that they've been involved in and a lot of the tethering and neglect that they've seen. Improper tethering is often also evidence of the animals being involved in dog fighting is something we learned. So this proposed code is not intended to limit how dogs in particular are walked or trained by owners, nor does it seek to outlaw tethering entirely. Rather, it is intended to enact responsible regulations that will target those practices and manners of tethering that bring harm to the animals and neighborhood residents. This code will continue city efforts to promote safe neighborhoods and encourage responsible pet ownership in Columbus. I know we have 3 wonderful advocates who I'd welcome to the podium to speak a little more about the legislation. That's Rachel Finney with Columbus Humane, Corey Roscoe from the United States Humane Society, and also I see Vicki Desner from ASPCA. You're welcome to come up.
Good evening, President Klein and members of council. My name is Rachel Finney, and I'm the Executive Director of Columbus Humane. I'd like to start by thanking Columbus City Council, especially Council members Hardin and Stenziano and their staff for their leadership in this critical issue. You've seen the research on public safety and nuisance concerns that tethered dogs generate. Life on a chain is a hazard and in direct conflict with the core values that I know that our city holds to be true. You may have noted that I'm listed as the Director of Columbus Humane. We are undergoing a name change from the Capital Area Humane Society. We're not a new organization. We've been around for 134 years, and we investigate animal cruelty, abuse, and neglect in our community. As a lead law enforcement agency in this area, our humane agents are in the field 365 days a year, protecting our community. Every single day, our agents encounter dogs who live their entire life on a chain, shackled in their backyard, literally prisoners in their own yard. When responding to reports like these, our first approach, whenever possible, is to educate, motivate, and inspire owners to take the very best care of their pets. We suggest alternative options, provide supplies and equipment, and even spay or neuter or other veterinary services as appropriate to help those families take the best care of their pets and to comply with animal protection laws. Many owners are willing to make these changes that are needed with encouragement and support, but sadly, many owners are not. When minimum standards of food, water, and shelter are provided for the animal and the animal is in a satisfactory body condition, there's very little that we can legally do to protect that dog. Our agents must walk away knowing that an animal is in danger even though a law isn't being broken. You see, our agents know that it's just a matter of time until the dog's chain is embedded into the skin around its neck, causing open wounds, infection, and more. Or the chain becomes tangled and leaves the dog unable to find shelter, reach her food, or even worse, slowly strangles her. Our state laws simply don't go far enough to protect dogs like this. It's important for you to know that anti-tethering legislation won't just help us bring comfort to individual pet dogs in our community. Dog fighting is prevalent in Columbus, and dog fighters often keep 10 or more dogs tethered in a single yard, each chained out to a house or a barrel. The ability to take action on behalf of tethered dogs will make housing dog-fighting dogs extremely difficult to do in our city. especially in groups. Simply put, this law will help us put a stop to dogfighting, and our city truly needs that. Should this ordinance go into effect, Columbus Humane stands at the ready to enforce it. Our agents will each be equipped with ample supply of safe nylon collars and other supplies to distribute to owners in the field. Education is absolutely the first priority here. We're prepared to distribute the supplies and information in neighborhoods with many tethered dogs, and in order to help people get into compliance with the new ordinance. Columbus Humane is ready, and I think Columbus is too. Thank you for being champions for all the lives in our community, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for me.
Any of my colleagues have questions? Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Councilmember. What is the penalty for not fulfilling the responsibility associated with this new change?
This would be a minor misdemeanor, and I do want to point out that this ordinance does not include any seizure. So there could be multiple offenses, in which case we would keep going back to the property and instructing the change for the dog and the care of that animal, but minor misdemeanor.
So there is a penalty to the homeowner, to the dog owner, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
hear you. To
hear
the dog
you.
owner, there is a penalty to the dog owner.
I still can't hear you.
To the dog owner, is there a penalty for the person who owns the animal and held accountable?
Yes, it's a minor misdemeanor.
Okay.
And I appreciate, as we heard in the hearing, Columbus Humane's commitment for that education piece. We had some people after the hearing raise concerns about, we have certain circumstances, and we addressed a little bit in the hearing, but really that commitment of working with the pet owners, making sure that we're having compliance and doing it in a humane way is really appreciated. So I appreciate all you and your agents continue to do throughout the city of Columbus. Also, don't know if Corey or Vicki want to make any comments?
Council President Klein and distinguished members of the Columbus City Council, I'm Vicki Diesner. I'm the Midwest Legislative Director of the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the ASPCA. And on behalf of the ASPCA, we would like to thank Council Members Stinziano and Hardin for their efforts to introduce this important anti-cruelty legislation. And along with our more than 100,000 supporters in the state of Ohio, we commend the Columbus City Council for addressing the cruel tethering of dogs in the city of Columbus. Across the United States, millions of dogs endure their entire life confined outdoors by chains affixed to collars and staked to the ground. Risks to public safety and inhumane treatments of dogs are widely viewed as the two primary problems with the continuous tethering of dogs. Public safety alone shows, the studies show that dogs tethered for long periods of time can become highly aggressive. When confronted with a perceived threat, dogs respond according to their fight or flight instinct. A chained dog, unable to take flight, often feels forced to fight and attacks any unfamiliar animal or person who wanders into his or her territory. Just recently this spring in the city of Dayton, there was a fatal mauling, and that animal had been a tethered dog. In addition to being deprived of socialization, tethered dogs are often the victims of abuse and neglect, suffering from sporadic feedings, empty water bowls, inadequate veterinary care, and exposure to weather extremes. They are forced to eat, sleep, urinate, and defecate in the same confined area, which goes against their natural instincts. Tethered dogs also suffer severe neck injuries from collars that have become embedded in their skin. Some even strangle to death when chains become entangled with other objects, such as a fence. Chained in place, dogs are also helpless to defend themselves against abusive people, stray dogs, and wild animals who may invade their space. In addition, unaltered chained females are likely to attract strays, leading to unwanted litters. Tethered dogs run a high risk of becoming stir-crazy due to the inability to release their energy and socialize with others. With dogs, boredom often leads to frustration, which in turn often leads to aggression. An additional contributor to aggression is that, given only a small area in which to dwell, tethered dogs are known to become irrationally protective of that area because it is essentially their whole world. Studies have shown that chained or tethered dogs are nearly 3 times more likely to bite than a dog who is not chained or tethered. And I will tell you from actually with the ASPCA being deployed on a dog fighting bus that happened over a year ago, actually on the west side of Columbus, I saw firsthand the reality of animals being chained in, below freezing weather, out in the cold, no shelter, huge leather collars embedded in their neck with heavy chains, and just the reality of that. And, we are still dealing in Columbus. We have a temporary shelter here that houses fighting dogs that we are trying to rehabilitate and, deal with as in evidence. So once again, the ASPCA thanks the City Council of Columbus for looking at this important issue and promoting legislation that would address the cruel tethering of dogs in the City of Columbus. Thank you so much. I would be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Vicki. Corey?
Thank you, President Klein, members of the committee. My name is Corey Roscoe. I'm the Ohio Director of the Humane Society of the United States, the nation's largest and most effective animal protection organization. I am thrilled to be here tonight, and thank you for entertaining a discussion on the cruel and constant tethering of dogs in our city. I grew up in Cleveland, and being a Browns fan, I'm used to a fair amount of disappointment, so I didn't know what to expect when I moved to Columbus. But I found Columbus to be a robust and vibrant city full of many dog lovers and businesses that were animal-friendly and many events that reinforced the human-animal bond. But I was saddened to hear that the City of Columbus does not yet have an ordinance that protects animals who are living their entire lives at the other end of a chain. As Councilman Stinziano noted, my beloved city, hometown of Cleveland, as well as Cincinnati, already have provisions similar to what's proposed here. So as a resident of the city and as a representative of the Humane Society of the United States, I would be thrilled to see passage of this meaningful yet enforceable ordinance. Thank you.
Really want to thank you three for your collaboration and ongoing feedback and work as we worked on the ordinance. Do my colleagues have any questions of the speakers? Then finally, also would like to thank our city staff, Aaron Beck, John Oswalt, Zach Davidson, Kevin McCain, for their help in getting this ordinance to this point. Councilmember Harden, I'll turn it back to you.
And I guess I'll just make reiterate a couple points. One is about education piece. Columbus Humane has done an amazing job. They are our animal enforcement agency in Columbus right now. Their job and their efforts are never to remove a pet from a household, so they're going to work with our community to educate folks on the new law and how to work to keep our animals safe and actually our neighborhoods and our kids safer as well. If there are no questions or comments, move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein.
It is 6:34. I think what we're going to do now is recess regular meeting number 41 so that we can go to zoning when the chair is ready. I'm sorry, 47, regular meeting number 47. So if I can get a motion to recess. Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Stand in recess. We'll come back for housing on after the break. Regular meeting number 48 will now come to order. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Jiza Page chairs that committee. All members serve on that committee. Chair Page, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, President Klein. And as our department staffs are transitioning in, I would first like to begin our zoning agenda by briefly explaining the rules of council as it pertains to speaking on any variances and zonings. We permit 3 speakers on each side, 3 proponents and 3 opponents, and we ask that they limit their remarks to 3 minutes on each side, and we provide an opportunity for rebuttal from the applicant. On the advice of the City Attorney's Office, I would like to ask anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against any council variance, including staff, to please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in. I swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. I will. Thank you. 2245-2017, to amend Ordinance 0493-2005, passed March 28, 2005, for property located at 6314 East Broad Street, 43213, by repealing Section 3 and replacing it with a new Section 3, thereby modifying the CPD text for Sub-Area 2 as it applies to the required monetary contribution for roadway improvement. This is an ordinance amendment. The proposed use is a commercial and industrial development. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Far East Area Commission's recommendation is approval. Are there any additional comments from staff?
No, there is none.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the applicant? Attorney Shannon is present for the applicant, has no additional comments. I don't see anyone here from the Area Commission. I would first like to move to amend to emergency.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I now move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
2429-2017, to grant a variance from the provisions of Sections 335503C3, permitted uses, and 331249, minimum numbers of parking spaces required of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1111 Mediterranean Avenue, 43229, to permit a shared living facility or a hotel motel with a reduction to the required number of parking spaces in the C3 Commercial District. The applicant is SPS Hospitality, LLC. The proposed use is a shared living facility or hotel motel. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Northland Community Council's recommendation is approval. Are there any additional comments from staff?
No, they're not.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and would like to make any additional comments? Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I now move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. That's all we have in zoning this evening.
Any other business to come before the zoning committee? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn regular meeting number 48? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We stand adjourned. Can I get a motion to reconvene regular meeting number 47? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We're now back in regular meeting number 47. The next committee is the Housing Committee. It's chaired by Councilmember Page. Chair Page, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. We have two pieces of legislation in the Housing Committee this evening. The first one being 2423-2017, to authorize the appropriation of $2,996,753 from the 2017 Home Fund to the Department of Development, to authorize the expenditure of $2,775,991 from the 2017 Home Fund to provide funding for various approved 2017 programs and to declare an emergency. This is one of the routine pieces of legislation that the Department of Development brings before this council, and it will allow for the continued increase in our supply of decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing for low and moderate income families. Director, do you have any additional comments?
No, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity, though.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Passed.
And 2518-2017, to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into an agreement with the Columbus Urban League for the administration of the Fair Housing Program, and to authorize the expenditure of $105,456 from the Community Development Block Grant, and to declare an emergency. This legislation will allow the Columbus Urban League to continue its tenant landlord education program and to continue to help tenants that may be experiencing either evictions or retaliatory evictions from their landlords. Any additional comments from the Director?
I do have one additional comment, Chair Page, President Klein, members of council, and that is for our listening and viewing audiences. If anyone is having a dispute with their landlord and they need additional help, I do encourage everybody to reach out to the Urban League. The phone number for the Urban League is 614-257-6300. part of what we do is we pay them as a third party to come in and try and mediate disputes and help keep people in their homes.
Thank you, Director. Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all I have, President Klein.
Thank you, Chair Page. The final committee this evening is Technology. It's chaired by Councilmember Stenziano. Chair Stenziano, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. Tonight I bring forward Ordinance 2304-2017 to authorize the Director of the Department of Technology to enter into a contract with SecureWorks Incorporated for payment card industry qualified security assessor services in order to comply with federal and state regulatory requirements, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $44,550 from the Department of Technology, Information Services Division, Information Services Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. The Department requires these services in order to comply with payment card industry data security standards. Complying with the standards requires the city to receive a certificate of compliance from a payment card industry qualified security assessor, and funding of these services are available within the Department. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Passed.
That's all we have in our technology.
Thank you, Chair. Any other business to come before council? We do have 5 non-agenda speakers that we will take momentarily. Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn regular meeting number 47? Clerk call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Stand adjourned. We'll take non-agenda shortly.